right? I was talking one-on-one at par with top CEOs of the country. And that's when you realize that no one really knows anything. Like, we're all trying to figure it out together. You can make profitable business if you're solving someone's real, genuine need, right? And I think that is what is so exciting about India. So here, there's so much opportunity. So she really took it on herself to say, ab main to sabko prove wrong karu. So she went back and started a school in her own house. And that school, now, the peak had 250 children in her own house. It became one of the most successful schools, K5 schools in Amritsar. We were very lucky to partner with the teams, with the founders that we have, with the brands that we have. Just imagine the density of talent and drive we have as a group. It's unprecedented. We are a sports team. We rely on each other, we coach each other. And now in a sports team, there has to be trust, right? Now, sometimes some people need a little bit more time to prove themselves. Say more no's than say yeses when building out community. And when people enter a community, they can immediately make out whether you are being authentic or not. The first piece is define your mission, define your purpose, be authentic and very, very clear about communicating it at multiple touch points. And more importantly, also demonstrate through actions. If you're building out communities from existing product brands, keep the community brand very distinct, right? Ensure the mission is very, very tight. When you're
Building communities is hard. Ask me. I've been trying for the past 3 years. But what if I tell you that I met someone recently who has built one of the largest communities in India, which later got acquired by one of Asia's largest content creator commerce conglomerate. And now she's serving as a co-founder for that conglomerate. I am talking about NaiyyaSaggi, the co-founder of BabyChakra, and now the group co-founder of the Good Glamm Group. She's a lawyer, a Harvard grad, and a proud McKinsey alumni. We sat together to talk about her journey as a professional, as an entrepreneur, and now as an investor as well. Before we start the podcast, please subscribe to our channel so that we could explore the startup universe together and learn something new every time. Also, if you are a founder and not a part of our community yet, please go to thebuildersclub.me and join the club. Hope you enjoy this one.
I think you were one of the first ones to actually make creating a community for young parents. How did you make sure that this was going to be scalable? Because when you started off, this was just a community, if I'm not wrong.
it wasn't even a community, actually, to kind of really dial back. We started off with saying, okay, what is the problem statement we can solve for parents? And we started by saying, parenting is a whole new journey. Can we help them discover services centered around prenatal and postnatal care as well as early childhood care? So imagine at that point in time, it was almost like a TripAdvisor / like Just Dial, if you will, for parenting services, right? I think what we observed then was very interesting, which is that, we were, of course, like doing a lot of product and engineering work and basically figuring out how to scale product listings out, service listings out, verifications out, reviews out. And when we were reading the reviews, we saw parents were actually chatting with each other, right? And they were also asking the service provider questions. So that is when we realized, and it's not the wrong problem first, right? There's still a lot of information asymmetry out there for parents to make better choices on as they go through the journey of pregnancy parenting. And for that, peer-led groups as well as expert-led conversations are super critical. I think that's really what led to the whole community that we built then very clearly and with a lot of clarity over time.
Interesting. So it was always supposed to be an app.
No, so it was actually, we started off with a Facebook page. Because literally, I mean, think about it, right? I mean, you're an entrepreneur, right? You're starting off, you want to kind of see, you're kind of dreaming of this thing about building out a company at scale, high impact, that will, be one of the largest parenting plays in the world. And that's what you started by saying. But, you start small because you have no money, you have no team, nothing. So it started with literally a Facebook page called BabyChakra. Over there, I'd post my thoughts and I'd post interesting things I'd figure out from doctors and conversations with mothers, and also service profiles, right? And it actually started doing really well. Then we launched an MWeb, which we'd outsourced to a firm, in Goregaon. And we had a waiting list, right? And we said that, do you want to be a part of India's largest parenting community? And here's the three things you get, right? Which is answers to your questions, connect with like your doctors and, experts for free, and also get access to all local services, right? That was a sort of the three-pronged approach. And when we launched that, I still remember the moment we launched it, we went and had like a pizza after it to celebrate. Just that landing page, right? In 24 hours, we had 9,000 people sign up. That's when I think I realized, and of course, there's a lot of back work done there, right? I mean, growth is not like, there's a science to growth, as we all know, right? But regardless, that's when we realized that this product has legs. So we launched with an MWeb first. Uske baad, so Facebook, MWeb. Uske baad, then we said, app ki zarurat hai, because what we realized was, how do you create hyper-personalized journeys, hyper-relevant journeys, and create that feeling of serendipity, right? That how did this product know this is what I wanted when I didn't even know I wanted it, or I didn't even know about it? See, when you're parenting, right, it's a new journey. That's why you're on a product, BabyChakra, right? So how you don't even know like what you need when your child is 6 months of age, for instance. So what to expect when you're expecting one of the most seminal books of its time, right? So personalization was critical. Localization was critical. Live up, like real time conversations were critical. And therefore an app was needed. So we launched the app then. And then of course, like over time, what we realized is that, you have to be where the users are. And I think over the time post the Good Glamm Group acquisition, and merger, we've actually invested heavily on WhatsApp as well.
Good Glamm Group is a very interesting entity. What's the entity looking like, and what is the plan for that? You people like for global dominance or something like that? It looks like it's going for global dominance for women.
So I still remember, and the journey of the BabyChakra merger with MyGlam. It's actually a Harvard case study, right? So it's been. And when we were writing the case study, I was introspecting as well as to all like what really led to it, right? Because the professor who wrote the case study, Professor Shikhar Ghosh, is a very eminent professor of entrepreneurship. He was like, "But what made you make the decision?" And I was like, was it the numbers? Was it the the economic repercussion? What was it, right? And it all boiled down to this one conversation that Tarpan and I had, right? Which went on it was supposed to be for an hour. It went on for 6 hours. Okay. And I think that's the heart of the idea, right? I think like, as entrepreneurs, we often think it's, you think about like a very, very significant seminal event in the life of your company or in your professional journey as something that will be like, based on like some massive Excel sheet that you would have plotted out. But no, it's actually based very, very strongly on what feels right to you. And that conversation that Darpan and I had was centered around two pieces, right? One was around how do we take, and we already started that off, right? How do we build out this whole journey of content communities to commerce at scale across multiple verticals, right? And I'd seen that play out at BabyChakra already, right? So by the time I was talking to him, we'd also launched BabyChakra products that I'll tell you a story about. So it was insane when we launched it. It's co-created by doctors and mothers, right? When we launched it on Amazon, the first 3 days we had such crazy sales. My chief of staff and I were up like literally 72 hours. We did not sleep because, the Amazon seller app, it kept on beeping. It was insane. And then Amazon actually blocked us because that ye kuch like it doesn't seem right. Kuch to chal raha hai yahan par. And I had to figure out through my McKinsey network and entrepreneur network, someone really senior at Amazon to unblock us. So broadly, the whole construct of content community to commerce, we've seen play out at a certain scale. And that's something that Darpan and I chatted about. How do we scale it across multiple verticals? And the second piece, of course, was the opportunity and the chance to join him as a co-founder and really help shape what we truly believed would be probably the largest, D2C play out of India to be global. Right? Because we'd all grown up saying, we have all these international companies and Bahar ki companies are good for us, right? Because we all grew up in that paradigm, right? But could we be that defining product company, right? With large top of funnel through media, through content communities, etc., creators, but to really dominate global markets. So I think these two things really played, and I think that is the conversation that stayed with me when we decided to do the merger. I think what's happened after is that it's been a very beautiful journey, right? We've gone on to acquire about 12 companies, right? We've gone on to acquire some and partner with some amazing, amazing entrepreneurs, right? Like Sirona, Deep and Mohit are very mission driven. They're the largest seller of menstrual cups in the country, right? Very deep purpose, right? Organic Harvest, Rahul, fantastic, like offline play, like the name itself, I think has really stood for very high quality, organic products. Momsco, of course, Malika and Mo, they've exited from the group now. But again, I think with Momsco, BabyChakra, that makes us honestly one of the largest parenting plays in Asia. Right? Through content, community, and commerce. So just imagine the breadth and the depth of, companies we're able to work with, by virtue of brands. Of course, when we acquired Saint Botanica and, so we have My Glam, Momsco, Saint Botanica, Organic Harvest, Serona, right? And BabyChakra. These are our product companies. And we have the media vertical, which is headed by Priyanka. So we have PopXo, BabyChakra is part of it as well. Scoop Whoop, Miss Malini, who, we've been fortunate to partner with on this, and Tweak. Right. And then, of course, we have the creator assets, which is we, manage and serve more than 1.5 million creators, led by Sachin. And there's a Good Communities, which is Good Creator Co, correct? GCC, right? And then, of course, we have Good Communities, which is something that I personally kicked off with the blessings and the ages of the board about 4 months back. And we've done a strategic partnership with WhatsApp and with Nas.io. So we've got two of the best partners there to really scale on an analytics, as well as, of course, community building front, right, with both these partners. And the vision there is, how do you become the largest deep interest communities of its kind globally? So that's broadly the construct of the group today. Separately, of course, I also look at the mom and baby piece, right? Because that's stuff I've known cold for the longest time. So one thing I'm really passionate about doing is also ensuring the Momsco, BabyChakra, both brands resonate with the purpose of being in service of mothers, right? And one thing we've kicked off, I was telling you, Sohail, is this national show, which is called the Mompreneur Show. It's the largest multi-stakeholder initiative of its kind, where we are featuring mom micro entrepreneurs. It's a national competition. We have an amazing advisory board of top entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders who are moms themselves. We have up to 1 crore in prizes, cash, and media grants from the Good Glamm Group. Plus, we have investments coming in from angel as well as women-oriented funds. And we have radio partners in radio in 94.3 and Field. Right? So that's the other thing I'm involved in, just ensuring that we really use, I think, all the leverage, all the assets we have as a group to continue, I think, the original mission of being in service of mothers.
Content, community, and
commerce.
When did you take the decision to start something of your own, or was it something which was always a plan?
So, when I was at McKinsey, and I'll tell you this a little bit, I think I'll just take you back a little bit in my journey, right? So first of all, my parents were very obviously big influences on me, right? And they were the government, but they were always like, if you lead one life of impact. Then, McKinsey happened, and McKinsey, I really loved, I think, the whole process of seeing businesses get built, right? And I think McKinsey was an amazing atmosphere to be in as a young, 23-year-old, 24-year-old, because literally, we were sitting in boardrooms, right? I was talking one-on-one at par with top CEOs of the country. And that's when you realize that no one really knows anything. We're all trying to figure it out together. And one of the biggest problem statements I think at least my generation grew up, I think this generation is hopefully different, is this whole fear of hierarchy. कि बहुत experience चाहिए कुछ सीखने में. नहीं यार, I mean, you figure it out along the way, right? And not to be scared of hierarchy, right? So that was a big learning then. Of course, the healthcare piece stayed with me. And then I went on to HBS. And HBS, my summer internship was actually with this very coveted internship with UNICEF in New York. Because I was so torn. I was like, मुझे अगर impact करना है, right? Do I join something with the UNICEF or do I build my own business? So UNICEF किया, mixed experiences. I mean, I was sitting in the headquarters at a really fancy living, but that's not really what I wanted to do. And I think what I learned then was that and I had these conversations with my business school batchmates, right? And they were like, what is the company that's really creating massive impact in India today? And whenever I'd go back, I'd see everybody started having cell phones, right? And I was like, Airtel. That point in time, Airtel, right? And Airtel is a fully for-profit entity, right? But the way it kind of transformed lives across India. Even today, it's like that company that really kind of sparked off the data revolution, right? Before Jio came, of course, and then had another massive inflection point for data democracy. It's like, you know what? For-profit businesses can actually have massive impact, right? And so all this was happening. And then, I had an amazing job in Boston after HBS. And then one day I just got up and I said, what, hell with this. I'm going to go back to India. And my husband, Sandeep, who's always been amazing, I said, listen, we're going back to India. He's like, okay, when? He's like, like now. He's like, what do you mean? Like in a month, 2 months, 3 months? I'm like, 2 weeks later. I'm booking tickets today. We're going to flip a coin. We're going to figure out which city to move to.
Wow.
So we literally flipped a coin. We said between Bangalore and between Bombay. I didn't want to move to Delhi, though I've lived in Delhi, because I wanted to be in a place where I knew if I had to put in the hours till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning, as a woman, I could take a taxi, take a bus, come back. So Bangalore, Bombay के बीच में था. Bombay आ गया, and we moved to Bombay.
Wow. Impact and profit need not be separate. A lot of people,
Not at all.
a lot of people usually imagine कि यार अगर मेरे को करना है तो मेरे को NGO खोलना चाहिए या फिर not for profit करना चाहिए.
In
I
fact,
don't.
on the contrary,
Yeah.
in fact, you can make profitable business if you're solving someone's real, genuine need, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is what is so exciting about India. So here,
Yeah.
there's so much opportunity because people have like one of our professors in HBS, right, Professor Khanna, talked about these chasms you have to cross, right? And there are enough and more need gaps, these chasms that exist for an Indian audience, Indian customer, Indian family, Indian individual today, right? This is like, I think India is such an exciting place to build in.
Yeah. 2021 is when the Good Glamm Group also started. Right?
Yeah, I mean, basically when the three of us came together.
Yeah. A lot of people might say that too many folks spoil the broth. How are you people managing that? Because there are so many alphas who are leading, who are working together. How are you working that bit out?
You know, the other way to flip it would be like, just imagine the density of talent and drive we have as a group. It's unprecedented, right? And I think that is the real privilege that we all have. And I say this very often. I mean, and I use this, right? I say we're very lucky to partner with the teams, with the founders that we have, with the brands that we have. You know, we're very fortunate they chose us. They could have chosen anybody in the world, right? They chose us. Now, of course, you're right. I mean, you know, we were figuring like this is the proverbial entrepreneurial experience, right? You're building out the group while you're acquiring companies. And I mean, full credit, by the way, to Darpan, right? Because he's the one who pretty much ensured that there was, you know, he took a couple of bets at that point in time where no one believed that those bets would play out, right? And fortunately, they are playing out today. And there's still some stuff to play out. But I think it was his, I think almost drive/ambition that kind of set the pathway for all of us as a group. But I think what ended up happening was, right, two things, right? One is, of course, we have an amazing CHRO, Karthik, who, has set put a lot of method to the madness that could have happened, right? A lot of, even org structure is such a critical part of M&A, right? And it's one of the most underrated parts. It's extremely critical to get it right. So that was one big piece, right? Like the whole process piece, right? Org structure, offsites, team building, setting, aligned incentives to group outcomes versus individual brand outcomes, right? At the same time, figuring out KPIs that align to like individuals to ensure that they delivered and, didn't lose sight of the extreme individual goals. So there's a whole piece around like proper processes, right? But the second piece is informal trust building, right? Which many people lose or like don't have, sometimes they don't grasp just how important that is. And that comes from like those conversations you have, right, with teams, that the leaders themselves have with their teams to tell them that, listen, this is a bit crazy right now. We get it, but this too shall pass. We'll see the other side, right? Or for instance, collaborative framework, celebrating collaboration, right? Celebrating people who are collaborative, right? All of this is trust building. And once, leaders trust each other, right, then it trickles down to the next level of management, down to the, front-facing, like the shop floor team as well, right? So I think these two pieces, the processes and the trust building, is really what's helped us put the entire structure together.
Communities have been a very close part of your journey. For anybody who's building a new community, how important is content? And how important is commerce? Because these three are the basic pillars at the end of the day. A lot of communities, they scale up, but they fail to monetize and then sustain themselves. And a lot of communities have a lot of chatter, but there is not enough tangible value that these people, I mean, they're just there without any specific purpose.
So I think the second question is the most important, right? Because I mean, like, what is the purpose for which you're building a community?
Yeah.
And once you kind of define that purpose, I often tell community builders and managers that say more no's than say yeses when building out communities, right? Because you could, your community purpose is like actually your community brand. And you have to stay very true to your brand, right? And when people enter a community, they can immediately make out whether you're being authentic or not. And the minute people today are very, very astute. The minute they say this person is not being authentic, right, they will leave. So you're going to have a very nice leaky funnel, which makes no sense to you, right? You're going to waste your time. So the first piece is define your mission, define your purpose, be authentic and very, very clear about communicating it at multiple touch points. And more importantly, also demonstrate through actions. So, for instance, if your purpose is to build an inclusive beauty community, which is what we're doing with Glam Fam, right? We're probably going to be one of the largest beauty communities in Asia in the next couple of months. Now, the whole purpose there is it's inclusive. It's of course about beauty, right? So, if someone comes in and makes a statement that's like, deriding another member's looks or aesthetics, right? That person actually is given a warning immediately. Right now, of course, you could argue a quantity versus quality, etc. वो पूरा debate चलता है. KPIs में भी numbers कम हो रहा है, community member को निकाल रहे हो. How does this work? But you have to take a call, take a hard call. It does not meet the community values and mission. That person is given a warning.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's one big piece of it. The second piece then comes to monetizing. Right now, I've had the privilege of doing two very interesting things, right? And I call it my Entrepreneur 1.0 journey, Entrepreneur 2.0 journey. Entrepreneur 1.0 journey was BabyChakra, where we used the power of the community to co-create products. So we did it that way, right? And I told you about the Amazon experience.
Yeah.
It was like an amazing experience for me.
Yeah.
My Entrepreneur 2.0 journey is where now we're working closely from product brands, building out communities. So I talked about the Glam Fam, right? That's an inclusive, deep interest community on beauty. Who are the initial community members? Our customers, right? Or for instance, Organic Squad. Again, on everything to do with sustainable, holistic living, like very mission oriented, but focused on that area, right? Who are our initial community members? The customers, right? Same with Sirona Circle. So these are all, but they all have very different identities as well. So Sirona Circle is a brand in itself. It's a community brand, right? It's different from Sirona Hygiene. Obviously, you're allying the two names, right? And the two mission purposes, but it's different. It's a different community brand. Organic Squad, we take a call on the brand guidelines of Organic Squad in terms of what can we discuss, what we do. We don't sit and pitch like organic harvest products there, right? We basically say, we talk about everything sustainable, holistic living, good for you, DIYs, etc. Right? How to figure out organic certifications, things like that. Again, mom stars, right? For moms ko BabyChakra, right? We don't say, oh, moms ko BabyChakra ki products use karo. We're saying it's a community in support of mothers. Right? So that's a second piece where you have to be very clear that if you're building out communities from existing product brands, keep the community brand very distinct, right? Ensure the mission is very, very tight because again, it goes back to the first principles of community building. And number two, when you're actually building in the whole monetization journey, be very transparent with people, right? And monetization just be like people going and buying the products again and again, right? Which actually ends up happening as a result because retention levels go through the roof, right? But it could also be things like creating amazing UGC that when you then push to the whole CRM system or you use in social ads, right, do incredibly well. The delta on those are much higher than regular, even influencer ads in many cases, right? Or the other way to monetize these communities could be, for instance, co-creation. We at the Good Glamm Group actually are now running, have run actually, BabyChakra ran it first and then My Glam ran it, one of the largest surveys of its kind where we invite our community members and customers to give in their preferences on products we need to build, right? And when we launch those products, the take rate, the success rate of that is through the roof because the inputs on that are given by our communities themselves, right? So agar aap monetization ki soch rahe ho, right? There are multiple other ways of monetization versus wohi, बस उनको लोगों को products बेचते रहो, discounts देते रहो, right? There are other ways of monetization or building your bottom line to be much stronger, right? Or having a revenue bump. But more importantly, being extremely transparent, authentic in a way that also adds value or gives a feeling of status, privilege, whatever it is, right? To your community members' lives while doing so.
But is it always important for you to have the monetization angle figured out when you're starting off building?
I mean, it would be great if you can figure it out. But I do think, otherwise what ends up happening is that So with BabyChakra, of course, we didn't, right? We had
Yeah.
to figure it out along the way. And we realized that, karte jao, I mean, you can do your brand. Like, I'm not a very big fan. Like, if I want to build a public company, I don't want it to be based on like brand endorsement deals, right? It doesn't work that way, right? You have to build out something which is either a digital product suite or a physical product suite, right? Which is what we follow the physical product suite, right? Because digital product, we also figured like at that point in time, micropayments and all the stuff also to do. So I think thoda sa you have to constantly think about monetization because Sohail, end of the day, monetizing communities is not the easiest. You have to match that, like if there's a triumvirate, right? Your mission, your purpose, your community values and community members, personas with your monetization plan, right?
And the third leg is basically the content angle. So a lot of people say, yeah, the platform does not matter anymore. You can, if you create a content and people basically follow faces or people basically follow brands and those brands put out content on all platforms, and then your audience basically follows the content, and wherever your content is, wherever your audience is, that's your community.
I disagree.
Okay.
That's an audience. It's not a community.
Okay. So how do you define, what's the difference between?
See, the difference is a community is where people are the heroes or the heroines.
Got it.
Over there, the brand is the hero or the heroine, right? Or the influencer is the hero or the heroine, right? That's different. And then that's one-to-many conversations, right? One person is speaking their truth, which is very valuable to many people. That's an audience. It's the same as you go to, we're going to go watch this movie Jawan, right? And Shah Rukh Khan is speaking his truth in that movie to the people sitting in the cinema hall, right? That is what has been the existing paradigm. What we are talking about is communities is many to many connect and create something magical and create that content together. Now, of course, to see some of the conversations, you may need to put in community conversations and community content, right? Or you may put in a piece of content that immediately sparks off this debate or sparks off some thoughts in that community, right? But many to many is actually community.
The other point which I want to talk about is scale.
Yeah.
When you start a business, should you always think about how should I scale this, or should I be happy that 1000 आ रहा है, पैसा बन रहा है, इतने में खुश हूँ, आगे चल करके देखें क्या करना है. So what
It's a beautiful question, and I'll tell you why. There's been a lot of self-introspection and learning I've had actually as an entrepreneur on this one as well, right? Because you're right, I'm very driven by scale, right? But I think when I look back, those are the biggest mistakes I've made. Because, things don't always scale immediately, right? What you need to think about is, this is like classic problem-solving frameworks. But like, I think first of all, but itna cognizance hona chahiye as an entrepreneur that what are the building blocks to scale, right? So if you break down what scale means, right? So give it a goal. Of course, that goal will change once you hit it. You'll be like, ye kya scale tha? Ye to kuch bhi nahi tha. But define your first goal. Scale kya hai mere liye, right? And then break it down to say, ye mere pillars hain. If I build it, if I do all of these things, the best of my understanding, ye number hit ho jayega. वहां से लो शुरू करो. See, many people now get into this whole thing saying scale. बड़ा बनाएंगे business, but बड़ा मने क्या? Can you articulate a number? Can you articulate a goal? Right? जहां तक आप पहुंचोगे, right? फिर उसको hit करने में आपको क्या क्या चाहिए? ये अगर आप articulate कर लो ना, then of course, why is scale not possible to do? Because then when you have the little building pieces, right? Each piece requires rigor of ops, rigor of execution, rigor of understanding like your stakeholders, right? Team morale, team building, the right people in the right place, right product in the right place, whatever, right? तो हर चीज का फिर एक double click होता है. But articulate करना जरूरी है.
I also want to touch a little bit on the team aspect.
Right. It's a privilege to work with talent. And I think of our teams as sports teams. Okay, we're not a family. Okay, family में तो कुछ भी चलता है, right? Bad behaviors also. My daughter 4.5 today was throwing a temper tantrum and throwing things around. She broke something. I was like, I still love you, beta. Right? Because I still love her. I don't have an option. I'm with her. I'm not going to tolerate bad behavior on my teams. Excuse me. Right? And they should not tolerate bad behavior from me either. Right? So we are a sports team. We rely on each other. We coach each other. I look at my, HRBP teams as almost like, people who put the processes in place for like helping people get to the best version of themselves that they can be in the circumstances that we have. And that's how I look at my teams. And now in a sports team, there has to be trust, right? Now, sometimes some people need a little bit more time to prove themselves or to come to scratch or to be a value like MVP for a team, right? You have to, like, I think as as like almost like a person who's kind of driving that team through, right, or working with that team, वो थोड़ा सा time के साथ वो judge में जा जाता है कि नहीं, this person is going to take a little bit more time to blossom, right? Now, one big non-negotiable for me is trust. If someone is not trustworthy, now that's an immediate case for saying, hey, let's part ways. But I think the other very, very critical part, no, Sohail, is also how you let someone go or how someone transitions out of the organization, right? Even in BabyChakra days, we used to have a big party, get cake, celebrate the person's contributions, regardless of the circumstances they live in, by the way, right? Celebrate it, and thank the person. We're still in touch. We have alumni, many of whom will watch out for us, who are constantly contributing back, bolte, bug reports dete abhi bhi, products, like they're with us, right? And I think that's one big lesson I had in my McKinsey days. See, the top-notch organizations are so self-confident, right? Top-notch leaders are so self-confident. They don't let these things, they don't want to be petty about these things. They know that these are relationships you're cultivating for the long term. So my big push to everybody would be like, be graceful with your team. Be gracious to your team because you owe them a lot for the time that they put in with you.
Words of wisdom. Naiyya, please, I want to now talk about your role as an investor as well.
Yeah.
You invest as well.
Yeah.
And you have been a very close observer of the startup ecosystem in general since the time you started out back in, what, 2015, 2016?
Yeah, 2015, yeah.
So I think the ecosystem has evolved quite a bit since then.
Yeah.
And we have had so many good companies which have come up. So many industries have started and died down as well. How have you seen the evolution of the founders and the ecosystem enablers within India? How are you foreseeing the future to be like?
I mean, I'm super bullish on India. I think I've made it more than evident in every conversation. I still think we're so early in our journey, right? We're like a fledgling plane. And I think that's what's so exciting. Because if you really look around, I mean, of course, you're going to be poised to be the third largest consumer economy in the world very soon if all goes as per plan. We're talking about the 5 trillion, 7 trillion numbers. We're talking about like a very, very definitive shift in middle class now. We could actually say, yes, there is actually a semblance of a proper middle class at scale versus all the numbers we were quoting earlier. So there's a lot, I think, of course, in data device, digital democracy, at scale. The ecosystem enablers are also amazingly helpful in putting the basic fulcrums in place. I mean, pehle when, the earlier, Startup India 1.0 started off, right? Which is like Flipkart and your Snapdeals and all. Kuch tha hi nahi. I mean, like they were actually also putting all the nuts and bolts into place, putting their infrastructure, logistics, warehousing, sab kuch in place. Today, you look at a D2C brand starting off, right? Everything is in place. It's plug and play. You don't even have to build a website. Like I had to go and sit with a developer in Goregaon and build out a website like from scratch. यहाँ पर Shopify लो, उनके tools लो या अपना मैंने Instagram पर एक account खोलो and धड़ाधड़ you start, right? Everything is there, right? So I think it's a very, very exciting time to be an entrepreneur in India. I also want to say two things, right? We're very lucky because even from my generation to the existing generation, there is, I think, not just the audacity, but there is actually it's normal to be a first generation entrepreneur.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
But imagine how far we've come.
Yeah.
Because even in my generation, right, which is not, I'm not that old, but even in my generation, right, it was like, क्या बाप का business है कि माँ का business, किसका business है, like तुम कहाँ से आ रहे हो,
Yeah.
Abhi, you can be a first generation entrepreneur and wear it proudly. There's a lot of pride in being a first generation entrepreneur. And then, of course, you're looking at tier 2, tier 3, tier 4.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. You're looking at like Jaipur, Lucknow, Ahmedabad. Like you're looking at all these cities suddenly open up an amazing talent indoor.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that is the best part about entrepreneurship in India today. कहीं से भी आप आ सकते हो. आपका background doesn't matter. It's a very exciting time. Now, couple of things, of course, need change, right? And one thing I'm very vocal about is that how do we make it even more inclusive, right? And we've tried to do a lot of work around that. We continue to do a lot of work around that. We have some amazing people who keep on supporting that as well and playing out of that change as well, which is how do you get more women? Like really get them the support that they need or that they don't need really, but the rights that they deserve, honestly, to get them to where they need to go by way of financing or by way of, exposure, whatever it might be, helping, whatever, the team building, all the other stuff, like all the biases there that kind of need to get away, or we kind of like, we need to evolve in society. That's one. I think the second piece you need to think about is like, how do you also, how do you really figure out as companies as you're building, right? Good governance. Because eventually as a startup today in India, you're actually building brand India. I think as entrepreneurs, we have a much larger responsibility than we actually even understand ourselves to our country, because when foreign investment comes in, or when rupee money is put into companies or into funds, which then of course accelerates the whole ecosystem. लोगों पर को अभी entrepreneurs startup ecosystem पर शक नहीं होना चाहिए. I think these two things we need to really think about and introspect as a community. And अगर वो हो जाए ना, we're set.
How many companies have you invested in now?
I don't remember. Average income.
Quite a bit then.
I don't know. No, it's not quite a bit. Actually, so small. I don't remember. No, but I'll tell you like. Okay, so we invested in Even Health, which is run by Marie. They're doing very well. It's an insurance provider. Then there is Hoop Health, Twinkle, Upal, and Saharsh. It's a consumer healthcare company. Then I've recently invested in Arpita's company. She was the founder of MacMocha. So she started a new company called Mysa, which is trying to automate compliance and legal. There are 3 other companies which I can't disclose right now. So mota moti laga I think about 10 companies right now, 10 angel checks.
When did you plan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also like, when I exited from whatever, like, at a certain point in time, Anand Chandrasekharan, who was actually an investor in BabyChakra, he set up a fund called Quaish Ventures.
Okay.
So I was
Quaish Ventures.
Quaish Ventures, yeah. So we put in a small check there as LPs. But that was like a really small check, Sohail. So
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
but
fine.
I think it was a way to say, we're so grateful to all those who've always backed us, right? It's also a way to like.
When do you think an a startup should actually start approaching investors or other angels? When is the right time for them? Is it at a very early stage, or do you think it's thoda sa PMF?
I think you should start talking to people very early in your journey. Talk to them. Understand people's thesis, because again, I think it all becomes, and especially people understand segments well or sectors well, right? Or distributions, whatever. Like this is some learning that you can have from that person, right? Because angel money is also about having strategic experience in your cap table, or opening up a door which you won't normally be able to access, right? So start having conversations with people you'd potentially want on as angels, right? I think with funds, the conversation normally comes a little bit later, right? Or if you, whatever, like you can just parallel process some of these conversations, but don't spend too much of your time in conversations also. Focus on building your business out. I think you'll get a sense from these conversations what are people looking at in terms of metrics of success or attraction, right? And I think when you know that you're pretty much like super confident that this is like doing really well, that's the best time to pitch if you need to pitch. By the way, a lot of people also get hawa ki kuch to acha chal raha hai is business mein. It's true. And then they approach you, right? And in fact, a lot of funds, what they're doing now is a lot of funds have actually started approaching us as angels to say, hey, can you come in and like co-invest with us? Because they want some strategic operator experience in or strategic insights in on the cap table along with money.
I also want to touch upon a little bit on the usual programs which are out there, the Y Combinators and the Google programs that are run, because you have been a part of almost all of them.
Yeah.
Right. So BabyChakra has been a part. How was your experience there? And do you really think those things add value? And in what sense?
I thought they were fantastic. For 2 reasons, right? And I didn't do everything, obviously, but I think...
BabyChakra got awarded by almost all the...
Yeah, we got a lot of awards. And I think we were very lucky too also, right? Because, I mean, sometimes when you look back, I think the brand became so powerful.
Yeah, I agree.
And
my wife still swears by it, by the way.
So glad to hear. Very glad to hear. But the brand became so powerful and so trustworthy because of these associations that we were able to open doors and get access to conversations or to capital that we normally would not have been able to get access to, right? I mean, literally even like for me, going to doctor's chambers, They just put it as bluntly as that, right? Doctors are an extremely important constituent of like what we were doing at BabyChakra because they were part of our community and part of our co-creation eventually, right? I'd sit outside doctor's chambers for hours, right? Dressed nicely, like all suited, booted, like with my folder, with my demo, iPad, everything. कोई मुझे time नहीं रहा Sohail, right? And then suddenly you go and say, oh, we won the Google Accelerator program, we won the Valley, we won the top 5 startups in India to be. Suddenly people are like, acha, to kaisa tha experience? You get access, right, to even customers / stakeholders. So I think, now you can't only build for being part of the accelerator programs, right? You have to take stuff back and be, I think 2 or 3 things that you look at accelerator programs with a lens of is that, okay, so one is, of course, is it a credible one? Will it add to the brand that you're trying to build from a company perspective, right? Number 2, what are they really teaching you there, right? So for instance, in the Google one that we attended, right, there was a lot of emphasis on UI, UX, right? Building for the next billion, right? So how do you like scale your, app protocols to really be, easy access as well as low data consumption or offline, right? For your constituents, right? The third is like you look at your peer group, super critical. One of my best friends yesterday, there was something that happened, and my Microsoft venture peer group, it says Summer MV 2016. That's my WhatsApp group, right? They were all congratulating me, right? 2016. And these people have gone on to do very, very well themselves, right? But that's the connect you kind of form, and different sectors, different industries, but your peer group bahut zaruri hai. So who are the peers they're bringing on? I think these 3 things you look at, you probably should then therefore explore accelerators.
Now I wanna get into I think the latest phase in your life is as a content creator now as well. So you've started your own podcast as well.
I mean, aren't we all? I think every individual in the world is a content creator. Okay, so I mean, because we all talk,
Yeah.
we all write,
Yeah.
we all are probably using social, right? So, or community. So I think we're all content creators at the heart of it. And I think for me, it's no different. I think the podcast I'm running right now is called the Mompreneur Legends, the Moms Go Mompreneur Legends podcast. And it's a larger purpose, right? And the purpose to that is, of course, I mean, strategically at the group level, we have Moms Go and BabyChakra, which makes us, as I mentioned, one of the largest assets on parenting in South Asia today, right? So we have to do stuff that's in service of mothers. I think that's something I'm very, very particular. I tell my teams all the time, we're in service of mothers, right? That's the reason to exist, because you have no reason to exist. One of the big problem statements that we found that was a big gap was, after maternity, it was considered a full stop in people's lives, in women's lives, right? They were like, "Bacche ko sambhalo, ghar ka dekho," right? And while the corporates today are doing some amazing work in bringing women back to work and ensuring that, they're integrating the workforce well, it may be too structured for some people, right? And therefore, entrepreneurship becomes a very natural option for many, many moms, right? So we were looking at this entire swath of like, if there are like 13 million, which I believe is the last number of women-led startups in India, right? Of that, at least 20 to 30% are led by moms themselves, right? Utna to ho gayi, right? That's a pretty substantial number of mom-led ventures, right? And no one's focused on them. So we went back to the drawing board. We said, how do we service them, right? How do we serve them best? So there were 2 pieces that came up of this. One was, let's tell people that it's okay. Your life does not stop after becoming a mother. So we did this podcast I'm doing, the Mompreneur Legends podcast, where we're getting in top entrepreneurs who happen to be mothers onto the podcast, the video podcast. And I'm asking them questions. A lot of them happen to be very dear friends of mine. So the conversations are very candid, right? So we have, for instance, the the co-founder of Akasa Air, Neelu Khatri, Aarti Gill, right? Oziva. When a lot of stories we have in common about when her son was born and she was signing the HUL SHAs, and that picture that went viral, we've connected on it deeply. Faye D'Souza, right, who opened up about postpartum depression and her journey of transition, which was very interesting to hear from Mirror, right, where she was so celebrated to now building her own company, Be True Out. Then we have Ashi Dua, Sarah Sham. Ashi Dua was one of the very few directors, producers from India featured in Cannes, right, for Bombay Talkies, last stories now. So amazing set of people, right? Entrepreneurs, like top entrepreneurs who are mothers. We're now doing season 2 as well. Again, it'll be an amazing, amazing lineup. And then linked to that's setting aspiration through these stories. Ki it's possible, ho sakta hai, right? You can be an entrepreneur after you have a child or you have multiple children, whatever the case might be. The second one is the Mompreneur Show, which is India's largest multi-stakeholder initiative. We've gotten Startup India, we've gotten Fiki Flow, we have Radio 93.4 as well as Radio One. We have Stride Ventures. We have D2C Insider, Gurgaon Mums Community Partners. We have a bunch of amazing partners there.